I set up a meeting for him to go meet with the sheriff's investigators because we actually had traction with the DA's office. They were interested in possibly reopening the cases. They needed a homicide investigator from inside of LAPD or the sheriffs to work with them to try and reopen the cases. And I knew Jim McDonnell, and so did Russell. And so I cornered Jim McDonnell at a meeting. You know, he was speaking at an alumni conference that I happen to be an alumni of. And so I cornered him and said, "Hey, Jim, I need a homicide investigator." He said, "Call my office, we'll set it up." And that's how the meeting happened. And Russell went to this meeting, and just before the meeting, maybe 3 or 4 days before, Russell had learned that there was an off-duty sheriff that had let the shooters into the club at One Oak the night Suge Knight was shot, and that same off-duty sheriff drove the shooters to the airport the next day. And so the day before Russell's meeting with the sheriffs, the investigator calls him and says, "Hey, what do you want to talk about?" And he mentions this. The investigator confirms that it's true and says, "How do you know this?" And is just unhinged by the fact that he knew this. And I talked to Russell that night and said, "Maybe you shouldn't go to this meeting." And he said, "No, I want to do it. I love Jim. I want to support Jim McDonnell." And so I talked to him at 9 o'clock in the morning. He was on his way to the meeting, and he was stuck in traffic. He said, "No problem. I'm going to make my meeting, though. I don't have to be there till 10. He was in Diamond Bar, and he gets to the meeting. Evidently, 4 investigators from the Suge Knight case show up at the meeting, and he had no idea they were going to be there. And Russell has a heart attack in that meeting talking about sheriff corruption with the sheriffs, and he dies in the meeting.
In the meeting? Wow.
In the meeting. He passes away, has a massive heart attack, dies before he hits the floor, and it's impossible to resuscitate him. And you would think of all the places to have a heart attack, the sheriff's department at headquarters has to be one of the safest. You got all kinds of people there that are trained in CPR. You know, you're going to be able to get an ambulance there pretty quick. You're going to be able to get to a hospital. It's probably a pretty safe place to have a heart attack. And for some reason, Russell passes away there.
And that's and when he was there was three guys that were from the Suge Knight investigation.
Yeah, there were 4 guys that showed up from the Suge
Knight.
My understanding is there were a total of 5 people. Now, I asked Jim McDonnell and the other investigator who the people were, and they stonewalled me. They said they would not reveal the names. And I thought that was a little bit weird.
Yeah, so
you know,
he dies in this mysterious meeting. Almost sounds like I'm not trying to make fun of your friend, but it almost sounds like an X-Files case. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's like you can't find out the identity of these 4 people that were there, and he just happens to die right there in the meeting.